everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer this week. Hope you guys are doing well. We're gonna actually jump right into the video and we're gonna talk a little bit about this up and coming Mercury retrograde in the sign of Virgo. If you guys like my content, you want to see more of it, make sure you click the bell button below, subscribe to the channel so that way you're alerted as to when we have new videos. I'm here every Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, and Sunday trying to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. All right, so by the time you guys are watching this on Tuesday, if you guys are watching this the day that it comes out, we are already coming into the shadow. So this is the benefit of kind of watching this video. By the end of today, Mercury is going to be going into shadow. So this will give you guys some food for thought. This is also like my part 2 video. You guys saw me take Mercury through the sign of Leo all the way up to the Mercury retrograde point. So this is going to be that second kind of part of that phase. So essentially, we're going to see Mercury turn retrograde, and this will be happening on August 6th through August 28th, 2024, so next month. But we are coming into the pre-shadow, so we're actually going to see Mercury hit 21 degrees, and that is going to be kind of setting the stage basically for the better part of like the next 2 weeks or so, where we're going to start to see some stuff kind of get kicked up revolving around the Mercury retrograde. So if you have any personal placements from 21 degrees of Leo to about 4 degrees of Virgo, your personal planets are going to be in the path of this Mercury retrograde. It may be impacting you a little bit more personally. If you don't know what that means, check out an online chart calculator. You can cast your chart as long as you know your date and your time and your location of birth. Look at the 9 o'clock hour, that's your ascendant. Find where Virgo and Leo are in your chart. That is where Mercury will be retrograding through. And I'll take you guys through the 12 rising signs at the end of this video so we can talk a little bit about what's going down. I also touch on this in my July monthly horoscopes. All right, so who is this going to be affecting the most? Well, obviously those of you guys who are ruled by Mercury. So my Geminis and my Virgos, particularly the rising signs because Mercury is your chart ruler, and also my Leos because Mercury will actually turn retrograde in the early degrees of Virgo and head back into Leo. So it's going to be impacting my Leos as well. Kind of an interesting take when we see Mercury retrograding between two signs, or for most of you guys, 2 houses. Think of this as Mercury going, getting in his car, going somewhere, and then realizing, oh, I left something back at home. I got to go back and pick that thing up. I got to kind of retrace my steps and go and find something that was missing, or I need to return to something. So we're going to talk a lot about what the Mercury retrograde is in Virgo, but keep in the back of your mind that it needs to go back to Leo. Mercury obviously is associated with Virgo, so I think it's going to do well in that sign, even in the shadow. But in order for Mercury, I think, to be able to do his best work, clearly he's got to kind of shore something up in the sign of Leo. So this is going to be all about kind of navigating this cosmic shift throughout this next particular month. So let's kind of get right into it. Let's dive in. So we're going to start first with kind of talking about Mercury retrograde in Virgo, because this is the sign that it's going to start in. Particularly from August 4th through August 14th, that 10-day period, Mercury will be in Virgo. So it will be kind of retrograding through this sign. Basically, this means that it's time to slow down in that area of your chart. When we think retrograde, we want to review something. We want to reconsider our daily routines. And Virgo is all about health. It's our to-do list. This is about wellness practices. This is like, did I water the plants? Did I take care of the dog? Am I going back to the gym? Anything revolving around health, habits, and routine. So I have good news for you guys. For those of you guys who were like, I want to make a change in my schedule. I want to find a new job. Maybe I'm thinking about, making some tweaks when it comes to my diet. I want to rearrange my office space. This is a good time to do it. Retrogrades we want to work with, right? It's kind of like cleaning out the fridge. We have to do it every so often to make space and kind of get things orderly. So work with this particular retrograde is my advice. And because Mercury is the sign that's associated with Virgo, we're going to see that there's going to be lots of communication issues that are going to come up. Not unusual with a Mercury retrograde, but this one in particular, I'm anticipating communication issues, misunderstandings, technical glitches, issues with scheduling, okay? These things can all happen. My advice is be patient, double check your work during this period. Now, like I said, Mercury is in its domicile, okay? So this basically means Mercury is at home. So even though it's coming into shadow, you know, it's playing with home field advantage. I think this is where Mercury is most comfortable and at home. So I do feel like the qualities and the characteristics of Mercury in Virgo are going to be a little bit easier to navigate. So the beginning of the retrograde might be a little bit easier than usual. Something else to kind of think about is that when Mercury is in Virgo, it brings like a very sharp, analytical, you know, keen attention to detail type of vibe. So if you're born at this placement, you know, you guys can be perfectionists. You can see where something is off. You can catch the spelling error. You know, you can find the little its and bits of things that need to be kind of cleaned up. But for the rest of us, I think it's going to be actually a pretty decent energy to kind of go, okay, how can we make things run more smoothly? How can we make things more efficient? How can we organize, kind of, you know, be able to kind of be a little bit better when it comes to our health, our habits, our routines, and honestly just run our lives in a much more efficient way. And there's also this sense, because it is an earth sign, that we are going to be really reevaluating what does it mean to practice logical thinking, right? What does it mean to be more practical? I think this is going to be about really asking ourselves, how can we problem solve? How can we come up with practical solutions to complex problems? And I definitely feel like this is a wonderful time to organize, and make fun of it, because not making fun of how people organize, but making it like not a chore, making it something that we enjoy, right? Or getting our kids in on reorganizing our house or toy box, or maybe reorganizing our office space, adding a little bit more flair, and also creating some time in our schedule to have more fun, because Mercury will be going back into the sign of Leo. Now, what's interesting about this is that when we start the retrograde, we're actually going to see Mercury turn retrograde and come into conjunction with Venus. So when this happens, we're taking the themes of Venus and we're merging it with Mercury. Okay, so kind of a little challenging here, having Mercury in its home sign, and then obviously, you know, having Venus in a place where it can be a little critical, it can be a little harsh, it can be finicky when it comes to deciding what it wants. Remember, this is a mercurial sign, so when you put Venus, which is about love and affection and relationships, into a very mercurial sign, it's kind of like trying to balance the heart and the head. So there is some sense of kind of going back and forth, and like maybe being a little nitpicky about our relationships. Maybe we can be more critical of ourselves and other people. It can also bring up some communication issues in relationships, and in shadow, some of us are going to be hearing from kind of old flames and people from the past. I think I would say that anyway, Mercury turning retrograde into Leo, because Leo is about romance and relationships, but this particular retrograde with the conjunction to Venus is definitely bringing a real focus on relationships, also finances and values. So likely it's possible that you're finding yourself reevaluating or kind of looking at your priorities and reassessing your connections to other people. I would take this opportunity to have open and honest conversations with your loved ones and or your financial advisors. Be very careful when it comes to making changes to your appearance. Obviously, we kind of want to wait, maybe, unless you're a natal Venus in Virgo, we want to wait until we get Venus into like Libra. That's going to be an easier time to make some cosmetic changes. So I'd be really careful, because Virgo can represent like hairdressers. It can represent assistants. It could represent, you know, healers, people who come in. And if we want to make changes either to our physical appearance, our style, our makeup, you know, our health, our routine, and we see this kind of Mercury retrograde shadow happen with Venus, we may invest in things and buy clothes or start relationships or, you know, initiate new health habits and routines that may not actually feel good. It may not actually be what we want in the long term. Remember, when a planet is retrograde or in its shadow, there is something kind of backwards about it, and the planet isn't functioning at its best capabilities. So we want to take this time to reevaluate and go, how can I make something better? How can I eat better, be healthier, be more productive, and like also recognize that part of loving ourselves and taking care of ourselves is doing it in a way that is natural. Virgo is not superficial. Sometimes we can see those qualities with Venus. This is about kind of getting back down to basics and recognizing and realizing that love and beauty, it's natural. To love other people is to love them in their natural form. You know, part of caring for people and being in relationships is sometimes sticking with them through the thick and the thin, even when things get difficult, for better or for worse. So I think we're going to be learning about that, learning how to better kind of communicate what we need in relationships. So a little tricky there, especially because Venus is the ruler of the South Node. Now, another thing to think about is that while Mercury is retrograde, we're going to see that, you know, Jupiter is the dispositor, okay? And I remember saying to you guys earlier this year, watch what happens when we have Mercury retrogrades in 2024, because the Mercury retrogrades are going to be reverberating off of Jupiter. Jupiter is in its opposite sign, okay? So it is moving through Gemini. It does have pros and cons, but I will just basically say Jupiter makes things bigger. So we have a Mercury retrograde with Jupiter, you know, in a sign that deals with communication and expansion and sometimes doing too much or multitasking or, you know, having doubles. It can get a little sticky. But the positive thing is that Jupiter is the planet of luck and expansion, right? So having Jupiter in Gemini, you know, this is a sign of communication and learning. And as the dispositor of Mercury during this period, Jupiter can help us find creative solutions to any challenges that we're facing during this retrograde. It requires us to have a positive frame of mind. That's something that you guys want to remember and stay open to new ideas and perspectives. Now, from August 15th to the 28th, we will then see Mercury retrograde back into the sign of Leo. So you're going to see some of the themes of kind of what's been brewing, you know, the first half of July while Mercury has been in this sign. Mercury retrograde in Leo is very different. Now we are reevaluating and rethinking themes of Leo. So Leo emphasizes themes relating to creativity, self-expression, romance, personal identity, creative projects, or children, right? These are the themes that we think of when we think of Leo. So while Mercury is retrograde in this sign, it can bring a period of introspection and reevaluation to our passions, our talents, and also the way that we present ourselves to the world. Leo is a fire sign, so it's associated with courage and confidence as well as leadership. So a retrograde in this sign can also be highlighting issues relating to these areas. It may be a time to reassess personal goals, our relationships, and the balance between one's needs and the needs of others. So interesting stuff, right? I've said to you guys so many times, pay attention to Leo in your chart this year. We're having a Mercury retrograde, and then at the end of 2024, we will also have a Mars retrograde in Leo. Expect lots of change with leadership in the world. That's one thing that I will tell you guys that I think we're going to see. There's going to be lots of change in direction with leaders. We're also going to see lots of changes revolving around, I think, gambling, speculation, you know, the stock market, because that is Leo. And we can also see that there could be lots of changes in our love life, you know, who we're dating, people coming back, going back and forth with, you know, romantic partners. We could also be seeing that there is a bit of a back and forth that we're doing when it comes to how we want to express ourselves, how we want to lead in our own lives. And also, you know, like creative projects. We might be going back to old hobbies and creative projects and things that, you know, we used to do when we were younger that brings us some sense of joy. So when I put this all together, Mercury turning retrograde in Virgo and moving back into Leo, for me is kind of like, how can I rearrange my schedule and create a life where I have more time for playtime? How can I learn to have healthy habits and, you know, be more active or be taking better care of myself and make it feel fun? Leo loves to shine. It loves to be the star. So I would say for those of you guys who have children, you know, anything that's going to be encouraging them to be more helpful, be more considerate, to be more proactive, to be more, I think, organized. You know, the reward system is going to work very, very well. And it's not just for kids. I say children because it's retrograding back into Leo, and Leo is younger people, and Mercury can rule younger people as well. But the reward system, right? It's like, okay, you know, you do X amount of chores and, you know, you're going to get a gold star, or, you know, we're going to have so many points that we're going to kind of add up. And then at the end, we're going to decide who won, and then they're going to get a prize, right? And we're kind of finding ways to motivate people to be more productive, to be more considerate, to help other people, and to also really shine and learn how to be a leader. So we're going to get much further during this period with honey than we are with vinegar. And also just be mindful, we can be a little critical of ourselves and other people when it comes to relationships. There can also be a sense of reevaluating our sense of, kind of like value and whether or not like we feel like we're, the main character in our own life. We could be doubting ourselves and kind of questioning whether or not, a project that we're working on is good enough. We could be questioning whether or not, we're good enough at a certain talent. And be reevaluating whether or not we want to be revealing some of these talents or some of these projects to the world. But remember that Leo is about standing on the stage and showing everything to your audience. Pluto is in Aquarius. So even though it's not going to make an opposition to Pluto, we have seen, this month, and it's actually started this last month, but we're going to see it kind of continue until the sun opposes Pluto. There is this feeling of being threatened or feeling scared of what other people think, right? Have you guys felt that? I've definitely felt that. Being afraid to step out and say something, to be the spotlight be put on you, to show a talent, to be, be brave and courageous and creative and to shine. And so I think a lot of this is going to be about people being like, I don't care anymore. I'm just going to do it, and it's not about what other people think. It's about what I think and what I feel. And so I think that that's really what this is going to be about. One of the challenging aspects that we do see on and off throughout this particular retrograde, both in the shadow during the retrograde and in the post shadow, is we will see several squares between Mercury and Uranus in Taurus. Okay, squares are pressure. It feels stressful. We're being asked to basically make a move or do something different, or there's something outside of us that's putting pressure on us to change. Through the retrograde process, we're learning how to integrate and kind of reevaluate or make changes or deal with some of these kind of unexpected things that can come up. Uranus is about what is out of the box, out of left field, sudden, shocking, and surprising. It's in the sign of Taurus, so it's about money, it's about resources, it's about values, it's about possessions. So when we put this all together, right, Mercury square Uranus and Taurus, I anticipate that this is going to be bringing up unexpected changes or disruptions, particularly in areas of finances, values, and material possessions. My recommendation is stay flexible, stay adaptable during this time, and be prepared for potential surprises, unexpected news. It could be an email that comes out of nowhere. It could be a shocking conversation or some kind of, something hits headlines that we didn't see coming. It could also mean that there is, surprising changes in the way that we look at our values and our resources. It may mean that there is going to be some dramatic swings in the stock market and that people are talking about what new stock or new cryptocurrency or new metal is suddenly like the hot new thing. I am seeing this right now, okay? So I'm filming this as we're coming into shadow. So I'm a couple days before you guys watch this is when I film this. Shocked me today watching, Twitter, seeing Larry Fink of BlackRock, go on basically mainstream news and say, I was wrong about Bitcoin. It is basically considered a digital gold. It's very valuable, and like saying things that, he flat out was not saying several years ago. Mercury retrograde represents a change in direction in our thinking, right? It's squaring Uranus and Taurus, which is about digital assets. And it is retrograding in Leo, which means leaders are making different decisions revolving around how they think about where they're kind of placing their bets or what is valuable, and they're putting out the news. I'm not saying that it is or is not, can't give you financial advice, but that is a perfect example of this Mercury retrograde. Now here's another one. Mercury in Leo is about creators, people who write, people who maybe act, who share. It could be about digital content creators. And it's going to be about what people are now revealing or where they've changed their mind, where they are willing to post something, they're willing to share something. Maybe they're writing and saying things that are really shocking and surprising. It could also be celebrities as well. And that square to Uranus may represent the financial implications for speaking out against something, right? A square is against something. So you'll see celebrities come out and say shocking things about what they value or what their values are when it comes to Uranus things, politics, when it comes to money, when it comes to their personal beliefs.
And it can be something where, you know, we can see people go, well, that's it. I'm no longer supporting, you know, that brand because they own that brand. And that's the financial implication with the Mercury retrograde of how it will affect things. I think you're going to see content creators and people who, you know, may be, you know, paid to represent brands or sponsor things, that come out and they say, look, you know, the people who pay me are not going to be really happy about this, but I have to just tell you what I feel and what I think. And like, you know, I don't care anymore whether or not I get kind of like blacklisted or if I get removed from a social media app or if, you know, a sponsor drops me, right? Watch for these things because I think that's what's going to start happening. People are going to start saying, it doesn't matter anymore. Screw the money. I got to say what I got to say. I can't just continue to be paid to just, you know, promote or parrot a certain talking point or a certain belief system. And then, you know, they're going to finally kind of realize that it's not worth the compensation, right? So I think it's going to be a beautiful thing. So far, you know, seeing some of the oppositions to Pluto has been pretty gnarly. I think we can all agree that if this is how it's starting now with like Mercury and Venus, what's going to happen when the sun opposes Pluto here pretty soon, right? What is going to happen also when we start to see Mars oppose Pluto at the end of this year? I think it's going to be pretty gnarly. Personally, I think that you're seeing with the opposition a battle between the old and the new. I think you're seeing a battle between this energy of me first versus Pluto and Aquarius, which is no, we have to change the whole system. It has to be about working, you know, as a group and what's best for everybody. And in some ways that can be good. There is a method to the madness with Pluto and Aquarius because it does want to update us and bring us into the future, but it's still a Saturn energy. So it can represent a limitation, a boundary, older establishments, things that are saying, no, this is what must happen, and this unwillingness to let go of the power. So with this power struggle is going to be, I think, new ideas. I think there is going to be new leadership. I think we're going to see people really kind of wake up the lion within, and you're going to hear some people roar, and they're not really going to care about the physical, the financial implications of that and who supports them or who doesn't. And man, what a time to be alive to see this go down. So we will see the Mercury square Uranus happen on 3 separate occasions. This will be first happening on July 21st. So it's actually going to be happening right around the full moon in Capricorn. Ooh, 29 degrees. We're going to see Mercury Uranus square, shocking news coming out. Then we are going to see it happen again, and this will be when Mercury is retrograde on August 18th. And then finally, the third time will be on September 7th, 2024, as Mercury is in the post shadow. So it's coming out of the third square. Think of a Mercury retrograde as like things come up, the retrograde says, okay, now we got to go back and we got to figure it out or work it out or, you know, come up with a solution. And then the last square is going to be the integration. So it can take several weeks for some shocking, surprising information to finally kind of come out in the world, or for us to kind of work through, you know, an issue when it comes to a relationship or an issue when it comes to investments or anything of that nature. It's going to be different depending on where this is in your chart. But something to kind of think about, that it's not just about Virgo and also Leo. It's also going to be the squares to Taurus and to Uranus and Taurus. Okay. Now, I guess the question is, how does one prepare and best work with these energies, right? So during a Mercury retrograde, you know, communication and technology, it can be affected because Mercury rules travel and gadgets and contracts and, you know, traveling, anything with like cars or vehicles, any of that stuff. This all gets affected. And we also see that it can manifest as miscommunications, misunderstandings, arguments, and general confusion in conversations and interactions. In Virgo, it'll be a little bit easier to navigate. Not so much when it's in Virgo, not so much when it's in Leo, because Leo is bold, dramatic, action-based. It can be very self-consumed when it's retrograde. It can be almost like you're watching like a novella kind of play out, especially with the squares to Uranus, which are going to be very shocking and surprising. So something to kind of think about is that, you know, shift happens, right? All we want to do is we want to be prepared. And I would say over the next 2 weeks while we're in the shadow, see what happens with the first square between Mercury and Uranus. So you have an idea of what you're kind of working out, right? 2, knowing that that static is out in the air, you'll do things like read the fine print, or maybe delay signing an important contract, or maybe, you know, starting a new job or planning a move or making a big purchase. life happens. We have Mercury retrograde for 3 weeks, 3, sometimes 4 times a year. So we can't put our life on hold, but we do want to be mindful that because Mercury is inward, not everything's going to be clear, you know, and some stuff can kind of come up. So anticipate that there can be inconveniences. Travel plans can be disrupted. There can be delays. There can be cancellations, misconnections. These are more common. Additionally, contracts, negotiations, any kind of written or verbal agreements may not go as planned. And it's advised to double check the details and avoid signing anything during this period, especially if there's money on the line because of the squares to Uranus. You may go and make an impulse buy on a credit card and not realize that, oh my gosh, you know, like my interest rate has kind of gone up. Or maybe you decide that you're going to go and splurge and go on a vacation and not read the fine print and realize that there's no refunds, and then you have a schedule issue. So there can definitely be some stuff like that that can come up. To navigate, I think, this transit effectively, review your daily routines and make the necessary adjustments. Virgo is saying, did we get our work done? You know, is everything in its place? Did we check off our to-do list? Have we double checked, you know, our schedule? Is it going to kind of work? Before we do Leo things, go to the casino, plan a date, make a decision to start a new hobby, you know, start kind of taking up like some new project, and make sure that it kind of resonates with what's going on with Virgo in your chart. Reconnect to values and priorities, super important. I think it's going to happen just because of the squares to Uranus, but I think that it will keep bringing it up, especially because the squares are going to be taking place at 26 degrees. This is a degree that deals with banking, money, resources. So before you're writing checks or before you're swiping your debit or your credit card, make sure the money's in the bank. Make sure that you're not overdrafting. Make sure that you have enough money, you know, on your credit card so you're not kind of going over your limit. Like, these are the things that can kind of happen. Reflect on your self-image and creative expression. I think that's pretty self-evident because we are going to be, you know, seeing that first in Virgo, which can be more critical, and then in Leo, which is about creativity. Stay open to new ideas and perspectives. Be flexible because this is in fixed signs. We don't want to change when we see things in fixed signs. People can get very rigid. They can get kind of stubborn. And it can be harder to kind of navigate and deal with getting news that's unexpected or news that we don't like. But also be patient and, you know, expect some changes throughout this process. So I'm going to show you guys Mercury's trek. Just go through the transits that I think are going to be the most prominent, and I'm going to highlight what's happening those days. You guys can find all of this information also in the description. If you click the description below, it'll give you the whole list of these things, so you can go back and you can look at it and you can make notes of this in your planner, and be prepared for when some of this stuff hits, okay? All right, so let's start with well, first of all, today we're going to see Mercury go into shadow. So as soon as Mercury hits 21, we're in it. So depending on when you guys are watching this, if you're watching this in the morning, it's going to give you time to be like, okay, I'm more aware of what's going on in this area of my life. Now, we're not going to have the first Mercury-Uranus square, obviously, take place here until the 21st. So I do want to kind of show that to you guys, even though Mercury hasn't turned retrograde yet. All right. So this is when you see the first square, Mercury at 26, squaring Uranus at 26. I guess I should also say, you know, if you have anything, I would say, you know, 20 to about, 20, 29 degrees of the fixed signs. This can be a little bit more intense for you because you're going to be experiencing the squares very personally, so it may feel a little bit more critical. But this is the first time that we're going to see, okay, there's something coming up here. It's kind of rubbing me the wrong way, or there's some unexpected news about resources, money, you know, whatever that's coming up. That is your sign. That's like, hey, this is going to get worked out quite literally for like more than the next month, because we'll see the final one happen in the first week of September, right? So watch for that. And then the Mercury retrograde will begin on the 6th. So if we look at this, Mercury will go into Virgo. It looks like that's going to happen on July 25th. So Mercury is now in its home sign. Okay. And then the Mercury retrograde will begin on the 6th. So let's take that to the 6th. There we go. So when Mercury turns retrograde, it's going to turn retrograde at what looks like, I want to make sure here. Yep, it's going to be 4 degrees. So here's something that's going to be interesting to watch, guys. It looks like right around the time Mercury's turning retrograde, the moon is going to be there. Oh, I take that back. It looks like it's going to be, actually it's going to be on the 5th, really early in the morning. Okay, so it's going to be August 5th. Very early in the morning, Mercury turns retrograde at 4 degrees. 4 degrees deals with home, family. It deals with the roots. It deals with the past. It deals with mothers, motherhood, anything in regards to like, you know, women who may care for homes, stepmoms, things like that. And it looks like right after this, this retrograde begins, the moon is going to also come in and there's going to be a trigger. And that looks like that's going to be happening closer to the 6th. So let's look at that. So Mercury is officially retrograde. And when we get into this conjunction, pay attention to the 5th, because it looks like all those planets are going to be right around the same degree. Okay, so really early on the 6th, actually, kind of splitting hairs, but August 6th, we've got Mercury retrograde conjunct the moon. So the moon's a trigger, right? So the moon obviously also deals with home, family, past, all right? So we've got the dispositor of the moon conjunct the moon. This is reflecting on our emotions, reflecting on our feelings, reflecting on our home, reorganizing our home, literally at a 4. Great time to like look around your place and be like, what needs to change? What can I declutter? What do I need to clean up? Like, what can I fix? And then also, I think this is going to be about kind of like dealing with the past in some way and trying to find ways to kind of like heal things from the past. It might be a time where we're forgiving people. It might be a time where we hear from people who we're in relationships with, or we're hearing from family members and people who want to kind of like remedy or fix relationships. Can also be a time where, you know, you're working with coworkers, or you're working with a healthcare professional and they're like, how can we make this better? How can we make this more sufficient? How can we kind of streamline things and make it a little bit more productive? Or how can we help you? So great time for healing, great time for fixing relationships, great time for hiring an assistant, great time for looking into a new financial planner, maybe like a new tax person. And the one other thing that I would say, because Venus is not totally happy being in this sign, is something you guys really want to watch is dogs, pets, cats. Dogs tend to be associated with the moon. Just more intuitively, I didn't even write this down, but the more that I look at this, I'm like, is there going to be a pet food recall? I don't know why that's coming up for me right now. Pay attention to news and things that might be about food being recalled, stuff that they're finding in pet food, stuff maybe that they're finding in litter, pet medication, pet vaccines, something like that, okay? You guys have seen me do videos for years. I don't usually like go off script like this, but I have a really strong feeling as I'm filming this that there's gonna be some kind of news revolving around these things that's very important, that you're gonna need to know what your pets are eating or something that they've maybe been exposed to. Weird. Also, Mercury deals with birds. It deals with things that are in the air, stuff that we breathe, okay? I've said this for a long time. This is going to have some kind of scare tactic, some connection to this bird flu stuff. We might see something else kind of kick up where there's news coming, right? Because the moon's going to trigger that, revolving around ill health, Venus in Virgo, pertaining to, you know, food, cleanliness, workers, people working in farms, people working in grocery stores, things that are being assessed, being analyzed, okay? So something like that around August 6th, watch for it. The other thing I would say is all of this is going to come into friction with the North Node in Aries, all right? It's starting to come into an inconjunct, a quincunx, rubbing it the wrong way. This is also health, and this is body, so how this is impacting individuals. Guys, we are going to hear in August, there's going to be layoffs. We're going to hear about companies laying people off, okay? It is coming. I hope it's not for the people who are watching this, obviously, but when we see Mercury, which can be about analysis and productivity and numbers, turn retrograde with Venus and the moon, there's going to be layoffs. We're going to hear that people are going to be losing their job, okay? Obviously, I hope not, but that's probably what's going to happen. And it may be something that has people kind of going, oh my gosh, how is this going to affect my home or my family? So that's something that I would watch for as well. And this may be a trigger where you're hearing from, like I said, people from the past who want to talk about their feelings in some capacity. So you'll be like, oh, I'm thinking about that person, and you get a text message from them, right? Or you're thinking of, a family member, and then they call you and they're like, yeah, I have, I've got this going on, and you're like, weird, I was thinking about them. So pay attention to your spidey senses when this is happening around the 6th. Now, it looks like the actual conjunction between Mercury and Venus will be taking place on the 7th. Okay, and that's going to be at 3 degrees. Oof. So, well, interesting. What can I say about this? 3 is a Gemini degree. All right, so whenever I see 3s, it's like, do I want this or do I want that? Do I want to go left or right? Do I want this job or that job? Am I going to keep dating this person, or am I going to, go to this new person? So there's options, there's choices that can get us into trouble with Mercury and Venus. And I will tell you guys, with Mercury retrograde, things are coming up. Things are coming up from the past. Things that have been hidden are being revealed to us. If you're somebody who's like, I just have a feeling like they're talking to somebody else, that would be like a Mercury retrograde conjunct Venus at a 3, 100%. It's like, I thought something was going on between, my spouse and their coworker, and I just had a hunch, and then I randomly found this email pop up, on their desktop. Like, ugh. These are the kind of things that I see with these particular conjunctions. And also where people are changing their mind, Mercury retrograde, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to what they love, what they value. And being a little fickle, that can definitely kind of happen here as well. Hearing from the past, okay? This would be another day that maybe this would happen. Interesting that the moon is also in Virgo that day, and it's opposing Saturn. So when we look at the moon, it's ruled by Mercury, and it's almost as if like, maybe some of you guys are going to hear from somebody from the past, when maybe you would typically respond, or you would maybe typically get triggered by the past, or maybe you would see something and then it would upset you, or you would read something and it would upset you. It doesn't, and you respond to it differently, right? You guys can feel like you're having deja vu also. Some of you guys can be like, why do I feel like we're having this conversation again? Or like, why do I feel like I've met you before? That can be coming up here as well. And with the moon in opposition to Saturn, it's saying, actually, we're responding differently. We're learning how to respond differently. We're learning how to say, you know what, this maybe isn't good for me, or maybe this is not love, or maybe this is not how relationships are supposed to be. And we're thinking a little bit more critically when it comes to relationships, when it comes to health, when it comes to money. I've said for a while that I really think this Mercury retrograde is going to primarily be about health, and it's going to be about how like leaders or leaderships are responding to health, and God forbid there is a health scare, if we're going to repeat some of the same stupid stuff that we've done in the past. And I'm hoping that this is going to allow us, with the opposition to Saturn, to say, no, we don't have all the facts yet. We're not going to jump to conclusions. Hopefully with the trines also to Uranus, we're going to say we're going to respond to things differently. We're going to handle it differently than maybe we've done it in the past, right? Critical thinking is so important when we have Mercury in Virgo. I cannot put that out there enough. So if you kind of get hit with, am I going to respond differently? Am I going to go back to this thing? Am I going to repeat the past? Try to take another path. Try to really think about it and ask yourself, is this good for me? Do I really value this? Is this healthy? That's what I want you to ask yourself when that aspect happens on the 7th. Okay, so then we're going to have Mercury turn retrograde. And it will return to Leo. And this is going to be interesting because it will hit 29 degrees. Okay, so this is actually going to be happening on the 14th of August. 29 degrees is a critical degree, but this is also when it pops back into Leo. So something I want to say about this is it will be conjunct Regulus. Okay, so Regulus is about a king, someone who is kind of, a ruler of some sorts or a leader of some sorts. It can be about people who are very well known and they're kind of seen as being a celebrity or a star and very regal. And sometimes they have a fall from grace with that particular placement. Sometimes they end up being like, like this well-loved leader. It really depends on other aspects. But this happens to be right on Donald Trump's ascendant. And in light of what's happened in the last week, I'm anticipating that this is probably going to be a time to watch Donald Trump. because it's right on his ascendant, 29 degrees. You know, obviously we know that Mercury deals with his 10th house of career and, you know, kind of persona, right? Gemini. And it's also, I think, going to have a lot to do with maybe making a statement. I think it could be about reevaluating something around his health, his appearance, his body. Something like that could take place. And we're going to see a trine to the moon. So this is also going to be his lunar return. So that's the time I would watch personally, especially considering what's interesting about this is Mercury retrograde will inconjunct. It's going to quincunx Neptune. So it's basically saying a leader is stepping forward and saying, here is this information. We're bringing it up. We're trying to expose something that's been hidden, right? Or mysterious, or something that has been conspiracy, kind of Neptune. So just a very loud, kind of boastful day. There's other things happening in the background, okay? So the other thing to kind of consider is that at the same time, when we have this conjunction, when we have this, this return, we have a major conjunction happening. We've got Mars and Jupiter aligning. So remember what I said, Jupiter is the dispositor of Mercury. It doesn't matter if Mercury is going to be in Virgo or if it's going to be in Leo. Whatever is happening with Mercury is also reflecting with Jupiter. Well, we've got Jupiter at 16 degrees, so that's a Cancer degree, right? Remember, that's what it turned retrograde with, and it will conjunct Mars. So, you know, Mars conjunct Jupiter is, I think it's taking on the positive aspects of Jupiter. Jupiter is expansion, it's information, it's knowledge. You know, it's laws, it's things revolving around travel and kind of like governing. And then we think of Mars as being bravery. It's about action. It's going to be about movement. Mercury, I guess Gemini ruled by Mercury. This is media. Okay. So this is going to be TV stations. This is going to be radio. This is going to be social media. This is going to be people who are acting out very boldly, very bravely. They're saying something, they're speaking up, they're making a statement, they're posting something, they're writing a blog, right? About their feelings, 16 degrees, about their nation, their emotions. And what's very fascinating is that when this conjunction happens, it's very important because Mars rules the North Node. So it's going to be a time where, oh my gosh, mid-April is like leaders are being born. Like you're going to see people who are suddenly going to rise to fame, or they're going to get a lot of recognition for something they say, something they post, jumping into action, helping people, helping their communities, being brave and being intelligent and not being afraid to speak up for themselves and for others, right? Their communities. Gemini is your community. Anyway, and then you got this in conjunction. Now, while this conjunction is brewing, right, in August, we will see the first of what will be two Jupiter-Saturn squares, which I will talk about in my Gemini video. You guys are going to hear my Mars and Gemini video on Thursday. But, you know, while this is really brave and you're going to see lots of independent journalists and people kind of taking to the streets and sharing information and getting out there, it's coming up against a square to Saturn, and Saturn in Pisces is saying, no, retrograde, no, we don't want certain things being seen. We're going to see censorship. We're going to see shadow banning. I have a feeling that if we see some really crazy events unfold over the next month, that this may even be internet outages. This may be things going down in terms of communications, and people not being able to get out and connect and share information about what is happening in certain parts of the world. So, you know, with this conjunction and the square to Saturn, yeah, I think it's going to be difficult to get some of that stuff out, and people are going to be having to figure out other ways to communicate and kind of share because there may be major news or things that are kind of taking place. Anyway, riffing a little bit on this, but there's something going on around the 14th. Let me just leave it at that. With the square, with the conjunction, the inconjunct. It's just, that's wild. So I'm curious to see what happens, and also what's going on with Trump. All right, so then we're going to see on the 18th. Okay, there we go. On the 18th is the Cazimi, where Mercury comes into its superior conjunction with the sun. Really interesting stuff here. It's going to be right around the time that we're having a full moon in Aquarius. That full moon is bonkers. bonkers. It is crazy. So there is some grand reveal. There is some grand reveal with leadership. There is some epiphany, realization, big news coming out. Something like that is happening. And it's going to be in a square to Uranus. So this is now coming, kind of going through the second Mercury-Uranus square. So you're going to want to think about what happened around July 21st, because this is kind of like part 2 of, oh my God, this is still happening. Like, that's crazy, you know? I keep thinking of, like, you know, Mercury square Uranus is like the reverse Uno card. You know, you kind of throw that out there and it kind of throws everybody for like a spin. And then we're going to have the full moon, which, by the way, is going to be in Aquarius. Okay, right here. So the full moon's going to be right after the Cazimi. And it's going to square Uranus. Man. That is like a shock and surprise full moon. That full moon is going to be at 26 degrees. This is going to be some pretty wild stuff about banks. And I don't know if it's the stock market or if it's banking or cryptocurrency. Obviously, Aquarius does deal with like politics and politicians, but that square to Uranus is about disrupting the order when it comes to finances, right? And so I think we're going to start hearing a lot more like leaders talking about, like, okay, you know, what they're viewing in terms of cryptocurrencies or Bitcoin or whatever. Interesting that the co-ruler of this is also Saturn, and Saturn is in a square now to Jupiter. So it's saying, no, we don't talk about that. You know, we don't discuss that. And it's still squaring Mars. And Mars square Saturn is like, basically, you know, Saturn's in the superior position here. We can't really see him behind the scenes, but he's pulling all the strings, and he's trying to limit Gemini things, trying to limit speech, communication, traveling, documents, elementary school stuff, you know, people coming and going from places. I think Mars Jupiter is going to be, I think it's going to be gun rights, honestly. I think it's going to be stuff revolving around legislation that's potentially going to be proposed, or it's going to be pushed revolving around, you know, self-defense matters and all of that fun stuff. So, you know, it may be something like that, and people kind of speaking out about it and feeling very strongly. But that's going to be wild with the full moon square Uranus, and then we've got the second Mercury-Uranus square. All right, so then we're going to go to the 24th. And on the 24th, we see a nice aspect. We see Mercury that is going to sextile Mars, okay? So at least, even though Mercury's retrograde, now it's sextiling Mars. And basically this means that we're feeling incentivized. It's like, okay, we've kind of been feeling like we've been holding back a little bit, or maybe there's been some delays, or we've had some scheduling issues, or we've had some communication issues. And then finally it's like, you know, Mercury sextile Mars is, okay, now we have some clarity. We've improved something. We've come up with a solution. We think this is going to be better. We're able to kind of talk through things and have like more clarity. Okay. It's not a major aspect, but it's helpful. And it looks like while it's sextiling, it's also trining Chiron. So we're able to better express what's in our heart, I think, with Mercury retrograde in Leo, but also that like the trine to Chiron is being like, well, this is what happened when I was a kid, and like I have this insecurity, and like now I'm working through it, and like now you're able to kind of heal that, you know, like inner child, or maybe you're able to kind of overcome an insecurity that you have, or maybe you're able to work through a relationship problem that you're having, and it's like about acknowledging like your flaws and like where you're afraid or where you're vulnerable. Okay, so that's nice, Mercury sextile Mars. So we're feeling incentivized to kind of heal things and get clarity. And then we will see on the 28th of August, Mercury will turn direct. This will be at 21 degrees. Okay, right there. And Mercury turning direct basically means Mercury retrograde is over. But I want to remind you guys that even though it's over, in September, there's still going to be a third Mercury-Uranus square. So, you know, we could still be kind of seeing some kind of wildness on the back end, or we're still kind of making adjustments, or we're waiting for kind of like things to become a little bit more clear. So Mercury retrograde's over. And then we will see the next aspect is going to be taking place on the 7th of September here, where Mercury is squaring Uranus, except this time it's squaring at a 27. Okay. So that is a Gemini degree. It's like we've gone back and forth and like now we're still indecisive, or like now we went with plan B, you know, we're doing something different. We're thinking differently. We're sharing differently. We're communicating differently. There's some sense of duality here, not just because of Mercury, but like really like duality. I think just in general, the Mercury retrograde, you know, it could be about some more changes with leadership, guys. I think there is more stuff coming. If you guys haven't already seen my video that I did a 4-hour presentation on like how I see the election playing out. And I talk about everything from this summer into, yeah, basically inauguration day in 2025. And I give you guys a spoiler, but I was like, I don't think it could be either candidate, you know. And now I'm starting to kind of go like, maybe that is what happens. Obviously, I hope not, but. Yeah, we'll see what happens. But I think that this Mercury retrograde, in a nutshell, out in the world is going to be still about some unexpected curveballs and changes with leadership, and that there's going to be other things that are going to kind of pop up, or people who are going to be stepping down. And I do feel like we see a date coming for Biden in August, and I talk about that. Anyway, so that might be happening with that third square. That's like now it's been decided. We know that somebody is stepping down, and you know who's kind of taking place. That could take place. And then we're going to see on the 9th, Mercury will then return to Virgo. So we're still in the shadow, but now Mercury's back in its home sign. Okay. And we're going to see a little sextile to Mars there again. So that's decent. And then it looks like on the 12th, Mercury leaves shadow because Mercury has now left 4 degrees of Virgo. So basically the Mercury retrograde will officially be over closer to the 12th of September. Okay. So some of you guys may have to copy these dates down. Like I said, check the description. You may also want to consider looking at my first Mercury video on Mercury and Leo, so you can kind of see the first part of it, so you can see what's kind of happening in that part of your chart. But I'll take you through the 12 rising signs. I just want to remind you guys where this is taking place, so that way you're on the up and up with what's going on. As a reminder, I am a Western astrologer. That is what I like to practice, is Western astrology. I will be showing you guys the Mercury retrograde that will be taking place for the 12 rising signs. I'm going to use the whole sign method. I feel like that's going to be the easiest to show you all of this stuff. That's funny, Trump stuff came up. I was looking at his chart earlier. I'm going to show you guys the whole sign, and let's take a look here. We're going to start with Aries and Aries rising. I recommend listening to your whole sign because we are going to talk about what happens with the Mercury retrograde in Virgo back into Leo. So I'll give you guys some insight on both of those houses. You can listen to your progress chart if you want. Listen to your rising sign, your sun sign, and your moon sign to get a better understanding of how this is going to be impacting you in general. And that's pretty much it. All right. So we're going to start with Aries and Aries rising. What's up, Aries? So you're going to have Mercury turning retrograde. This is obviously going to be happening, you know, at the beginning of August, but it's going to turn retrograde in Virgo in your natal 6th house, and Mercury will return to your 5th house. Okay. First of all, Mercury rules your 3rd house. Vehicles, communication, siblings, neighbors, learning, traveling, anything with documents, like stuff like that seems to be an emphasis. And this Mercury retrograde may actually really impact you, Aries, because of the Mars-Jupiter conjunction that's kind of taking place in your 3rd house, which can be really emphasizing some of these themes. Anyway, so the Mercury retrograde will start in the 6th and it'll go back into the 5th. And Mercury also has connections to your 6th house natally, which is about health, habits, and routine. Okay, so when the Mercury retrograde begins, it's going to start in your 6th house, which means that you really want to focus on reviewing your daily routines and your health practices. That's the long and short of it. Some of you guys will change jobs, some of you guys will change offices, some of you guys are looking to go back to work or to kind of remedy like a health matter. When Mercury turns retrograde into Leo, then it's very different because it's more like How am I communicating what's in my heart space? How am I making time for dating? How am I, helping my kids, more, or kind of encouraging them to kind of like be more productive or more self-sufficient? How am I being healthy but doing it in a fun way? So like those of you guys who are like, I don't really feel like going to the gym or returning back to the gym, I would be like, Mercury retrograde in your 5th house is go and do something fun. Go and take a dance class, right? Or something that's going to help you move in like a much more kind of active but creative way. Go and do something that may be a little competitive. Great time also to create time for some of your creative projects and also some of your hobbies, okay? Hopefully that's helpful for you, Aries and Aries rising. Let me know what is going on for you with this retrograde. All right, so we have Taurus and Taurus rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Mercury turning retrograde in the sign of Virgo, and it will be retrograding back into your 4th house of home and family. So when the Mercury retrograde begins, it's going to be in your 5th house in Virgo. It's a fellow sister earth sign, so it can be helpful for you, especially the beginning portion of the retrograde. And Mercury rules your 2nd house of money, possessions, resources, and income. It also rules your 5th house of creativity, self-expression, children, dating, and taking chances. So when Mercury turns retrograde in your 5th house, this is about reconnecting with your passions and your creative expression. How can I have more fun? How can I have more time for play? I want to go back to an old hobby. I want to, bust out the game boards. I want to start painting again. How can I get back into dating? Maybe you hear from an old flame. Maybe you're reevaluating something revolving around children. And it will drop into your 4th house. So it means that when it comes to these 5th house topics, it's almost like something needs to change in your home, or something needs to change for you emotionally, or something needs to change when it comes to your physical space, maybe what you possess at home. I could definitely see this as people who are older who have children. Oh, my kid's coming to visit me, right? Or my kid's moving back in with me, or they're helping me, move or reorganize my space. It could also mean that you are moving in or changing directions with a living situation and a romantic partner. What else? I think you're reassessing maybe how much money you want to spend on a home thing, like a home, decoration type situation, or a renovation. And you're like, how can I do some of this stuff myself? Like, would I save money potentially if I painted the walls myself? Or, does it make sense to maybe move in with my boyfriend or my girlfriend, and have a joint space together? And how can that be reimagined? So something like that can be kind of happening as you have this retrograde. And there is this sense of maybe making decisions revolving around, your love life and how you feel maybe about romantic partners. Okay. Good luck, Taurus. Let me know what's going on there. All right, we've got Gemini and Gemini rising. So you are going to be experiencing a Mercury retrograde, Gemini, which we know it impacts you a lot because you're ruled by Mercury. So the retrograde is actually going to start in Virgo, and that is in your 4th house, and it will retrograde into Leo in your 3rd house. All right, so something to think about, my Geminis, all right, is that you are Mercury. Mercury rules your body, your action, your appearance, and it's very much about how you're thinking or how you're connecting with other people. So when Mercury is in the 4th house, it means your mind is at home. It's on what's going on with home. How are things flowing? How are we communicating? What's happening with organization? What's being rearranged? What's changing? It could also be family or your emotions. It could be roommates. It could be people that you live with. It could be pets. It could be children. So the thing I also think about is that it's going to be in a sign that's going to square you. So you're going to feel a little challenged at first. There could be some miscommunications with some of these people with home and family. And Mercury is the ruler of, Jupiter and Mars in your sign. the positive with Jupiter and Mars in your first house is that you're like, I am ready to make a change. I am ready to take action. I am positive. I'm optimistic. Let's do it. Let's go. Let's have new things. So that works in your favor. Maybe you're feeling like you're willing to be the person who's going to kind of like, you know, man the ship when it comes to relocating the family, looking for a new space, maybe shopping for a new car, maybe, you know, communicating or reconnecting with certain relatives, that kind of stuff. So when Mercury retrogrades into your third house, it basically means before these changes happen, there is a need to really focus on communication and to read contracts, okay? You guys, if you are buying cars, if you are signing leases, if you are moving, like all of these things you got to be really careful with because you're having retrogrades in the part of your chart where that's what these things are about. Mercury, I think going retrograde Leo in the third house is like, what's going to make me the happiest? Or how can I communicate in a much more heart-centered way? I feel like this is also going to be about getting you to express your emotions better through communication. You know, so maybe journaling can be helpful. Maybe telling people, you know, how you feel can be helpful. Really kind of connecting and kind of getting all the emotions and the feelings out that you need to, so that way you can feel happier and also like you're thriving when it comes to your home base. But read those contracts, take your time, and you can see that there can be some kind of changing your mind either with like a vehicle or like a home or a family situation, okay? Good luck, my Geminis. All right, so we got Cancer and Cancer rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Mercury turning retrograde in the sign of Virgo, and it will be retrograding from Virgo in your third house into Leo in your second house. So something to kind of think about, my Cancer and Cancer risings. First of all, third house. This is about communication. This is about your communication style. This is about learning methods, vehicles, gadgets, siblings, traveling, right? And it will retrograde into your second house of money and resources. Now, Mercury rules your third house natally, and it's also connected to your 12th house, which is the hidden mind, subconscious, your dreams, things that you want to talk about, but you don't know if you should say. So maybe, you know, Mercury turning retrograde in your third into your second is you're literally listening to an astrology video, right? 12th house, which is giving you some information, Gemini, about predicting things that could happen that you don't see. And Mercury turning retrograde from your third house into your second house could mean really think about anything before you make any major purchases, because the second house is the money you possess, okay? So you could assume that a Mercury retrograde in your second means that you're like, I bought this thing and now I'm realizing I couldn't afford it, right? And that could be a car, that could be moving expenses, that could be travel, that could be buying a gadget. And then you're realizing or reassessing, oh my goodness, you know, this, I paid way too much for this. Now it's on sale and I can't take it back. Or, you know, maybe I shouldn't have been so impulsive and, you know, paid for the trip or bought the car, whatever. So something comes up and you have to change your mind, right? So, I would say budget accordingly, be mindful of your spending habits, save all of your receipts, you know, maybe leave some big ticket items with tags on it so you're really sure that you want to keep it or that you can afford it. Read the fine print before you potentially purchase a vehicle or before you sign a lease, because it's going to be more financial for you guys, basically. There can be some unexpected kind of hiccups with finances, or there can be some changes in terms of the income that's coming in. Sometimes income slows down when Mercury retrogrades in the second house. Sometimes we go through a period of not working as much and then suddenly work comes in and we make money again. So it's not always a bad thing, but you usually see like the reverse of what's been happening. I love a Mercury retrograde in the second house to get rid of things. I think that that's a really good time to be like, I don't need this anymore. So you could be going through your closet or, you know, places where maybe you've packed stuff up and you've put it away, and you could be like, oh, I have these clothes that I could donate, or, you know, things that I could sell, or I have these old books that I don't need anymore. I'm going to put them on eBay. And there could be a way to make money off of things that you don't really need, and it can kind of help you downsize throughout that process, okay? Double and triple check all receipts, anything you buy, also banking receipts too. Check your apps, because there can be some stuff where there's double charges and you would never realize it. Good luck. We've got Leo and Leo rising. You'll be experiencing a Mercury retrograde that's starting in Virgo. It's going to start in your second house, and it's going to go into Leo, into your sign. Now, Mercury traditionally rules your second house of money, resources, and possessions, as well as your 11th house of friends, goals, and other people. So when you have a Mercury retrograde that's starting in your second house, it basically means you're reevaluating something in regards to your values. Second house rules money in the bank, what you possess, what you're spending on, but also this is the house of values. This is the house of style. So I would say for anybody experiencing a Mercury retrograde in their first house, put the scissors down. Do not cut your hair. Don't make any, dramatic, fashion changes. Think twice about anything like cosmetic or anything that you're going to be paying a substantial amount of money to kind of change. Wait a little bit, okay? Especially because that retrograde is going to be with Venus. So it might mean that there's a change revolving around, well, I was going to buy this thing, or I was going to, make this investment, or I was going to do this. I changed my mind, right? Because Venus rules your third. For what it's worth, I would say this is a time to be more focused on what do I really value? What do I really love? How can I love myself the way that I am without feeling like I need to spend a bunch of money to change who I am? And I think this is also going to be about reevaluating the relationship that you have to money and how you're using it and kind of like, what kind of a role it plays in your life, basically. It will retrograde into your first house where, you can see that there's changes to your goals, right? Because Mercury rules your 11th house. Changes in the way that you want to make money. Changes in the friendships that you value. That could be happening as well. And Mercury retrograde in the first house, we can see health stuff come up. We can see miscommunications in a very big way also with ourselves. So I'm thinking about, especially when it's in Leo and it's going to oppose that full moon in Aquarius square Uranus, there could be some big miscommunications with clients. There could be big miscommunications with friends, with romantic partners. So just kind of be mindful that you may feel a little tongue-tied. You might want to kind of sit on something and think about something before you say something or before you make a big decision. No major appearance changes if you guys can help it, okay? Good luck, my Leos. All right, so we've got Virgo and Virgo rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Mercury retrograde in your sign. It will be going retrograde through your first house and dropping into Leo in your 12th house. So this is going to be impacting you very much because, Mercury rules your chart. So whatever's going on with Mercury is a reflection of you. The Mercury retrograde starts in your first house. So when it comes to your appearance, your health, when it comes to any cosmetic changes or anything pertaining to your body, and also your communication, things can feel a little wonky. Mercury also rules your 10th house of career and reputation. So it could represent a time where you're like, I don't know what I want to do for work. I'm, indecisive, or maybe I'm wanting to change something about my reputation at work. I want to change something about what I'm doing, or I'm changing direction in that way. You may find that it's hard to communicate with superiors and people professionally. For the mutable signs, this can be definitely challenging because you're going to see that it's going to be, coming into some friction because we have the Jupiter-Mars conjunction in Gemini. So essentially, you're getting it from different angles. Mars and Jupiter are squaring Saturn in your relationship zone. So you're kind of feeling like relationships can be challenging because there's a lot of growth going on with your work and also your career. So you can feel overwhelmed. I think Mercury retrograde in your sign into your 12th house might mean that you're like, wow, change is happening so fast. There's a lot going on at work. I'm overwhelmed. I've got something that's also kind of brewing in the relationship department and I just need a break. So while Mercury retrogrades over your ascendant, you may feel like there's something that you want to say to somebody or a conversation you want to have, but you're holding back. It can also mean that you need more time for rest and recuperation, and you need time to kind of work through things privately, and you can be feeling like you need some alone time or you just need more sleep. So be mindful of that. Same thing goes with appearance changes as Leo. Don't make any big changes. And when Mercury is retrograde in your 12th house, pay attention to your dreams because dreams can be very, very prominent, and there can be stuff coming up where there's things that you're recognizing and realizing about yourself or about your life. And there's certain things that you're like your spirit team wants you to know, or messages that you kind of get from the ethers about what you need to let go of, right? All right, so hopefully that's helpful for you, Virgo. And take care of your health. Sorry, guys, I've got the Mars, I'm filming this right now, and Mars and Uranus are conjuncting. It's in opposition to my Sun and Mercury, so I've been losing my voice. It happens every time. So hopefully I have a voice when we're done with this. All right, so we are going to now look at Libra and Libra rising. So Libra, you're going to be experiencing Mercury turning retrograde in the sign of Virgo. It's going to start in your 12th house, and it's going to retrograde back into Leo in your 11th house. All right, so for my Libras, for you guys, just as like a heads up, basically like, you know, Mercury rules your 12th house of self-undoing, bad habits, sleep, behind the scenes, private things, spiritual stuff. It also rules your 9th house of travel, philosophy, belief systems, and higher education, right? Law and legality as well. So when Mercury turns retrograde from your 12th house into your 11th house, for some of you guys, it could represent a time where, you know, suddenly you're like, you know, I'm coming out of my hermit shell. Maybe you have been a little bit more kind of private. You've been kind of keeping to yourself. Maybe you have been a little less social. Maybe you've been like retreating a little bit, and you're kind of, you know, coming back into your social field, reconnecting with friends from your past, talking to people you haven't seen for a while. There is this renewal maybe of some of your goals and things that you're hoping to achieve, or people that you're hoping to kind of work with or kind of collaborate with. Friends from the past can come back. So that's, I think, the positive thing here. And there can also be this renewal of your goals and also your belief system. That's the other way that I kind of see this. What else? Oh, and obviously, you know, Libra, when Mercury turns retrograde, it's going to turn retrograde and it'll conjunct Venus. And when that happens in your 12th house, you need to pay attention to your health, Libra. There can be some health stuff that can come up that you don't see coming. And it can be emotional, it doesn't have to be physical. It can be that you're just exhausted. It could be that there's some grief or something that you're mourning that's kind of coming up. It could also mean that you just feel like you need a little bit more alone time. And there could be some big changes that are kind of going on in regards to either your spiritual kind of beliefs or something revolving around your finances that's changing at that time, okay? All right, so good luck, Libra. And we've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. All right, so for my Scorpio and Scorpio risings, you guys are going to experience Mercury turning retrograde in Virgo. It's happening in your 11th house, and it will retrograde back into Leo in your 10th house of career and reputation. So for my Scorpio and Scorpio risings, there is both a combination of reevaluating your friendships, reevaluating some of your goals, reevaluating your social networks, what groups you belong to, who you want to hang out with, who you're collaborating with. And also because Mercury rules your 8th house of joint resources and other people's money, it could mean that you're going back and forth about what are my goals when it comes to investing, what are my goals when it comes to joint income. And also there can be some kind of like secret that's emerging within your friend group, or there can be some information that's really sensitive that's emerging, or some really dramatic change that can kind of be happening in regards to one of your friendships. Now, Mercury will then retrograde into your 10th house of career. So another way of looking at this is like, if you're anticipating a career change, you might be talking to your friends about it first. You might be talking to a group of people about it first, people you work with. Maybe you're networking again. Maybe you decide that you want to go on a website, you want to put your resume out. Maybe you tell your friends, hey, I'm looking for something new. And then there is this rearrangement or kind of working of your job, your career, your reputation. When Mercury retrogrades in the 10th house, it's not unusual to change our schedule, to take a step back, to take a new job, to go back to an old job, to get some shocking news about some kind of change with leadership or the direction of your professional life. Great time to reevaluate what you want to do. All I can tell you, Scorpio, is that while this is happening, Mars, your chart ruler, is in conjunction to Jupiter. So you're like, yes, I want to make a change. I want to make more money. It's time for there to be some kind of merger or more support. Maybe you decide you want to work with a new company. Maybe you want to work with a group of friends. I don't know. But you're going to be working on this at the end of this year as well when you have a Mars retrograde. Be careful with big announcements that you're making. Don't count your chickens until they hatch. And for some of you guys, this Mercury retrograde can be having your moment in the sun where you have a breakthrough and that you do get a new job or you do get a raise, you get recognized in some way, and it helps you make more money. And I think a lot of it's going to be connected to who you know or who you're kind of connected to or collaborating with. All right. Good luck, Scorpio. We've got Sag and Sag rising. You guys are going to be experiencing Mercury retrograde in Virgo. It will start in your 10th house of career and it will retrograde back into Leo in your natal 9th house. All right, so Saggies, obviously, it's going to be an immutable sign, right? And like, holy cow, Sagittarius, put your big boy and girl pants on. Because the way that this is going to kind of play out with the retrograde in your 10th house of career, first of all, it's 10 signs away from you. So it feels like a Saturn energy. You're going to be like, this is trying. And it's going to square your planets. It's going to oppose this energy in Pisces and also square this energy in Gemini. So this is a grand mutable cross you will experience. The good news is when you have these squares, your whole life changes, right? Because you have the angular houses that are kind of, shifting. So how you reorganize or rethink your career or your status, and this could mean what you're doing for a living, whether you're single or you're, engaged or you're married, whether you're an employee or a CEO, whatever you're rethinking or reworking here is going to have far-reaching effects when it comes to, your clients, your relationships, your marketplace, your home, your emotions, your family, and you. This is going to be like a lot of moving parts at once. So just kind of stay with it. I would say not a time to launch new business endeavors, not a time to launch new websites, not a time to launch new products. Okay, it's just not the time because Mercury rules your career and also your marketplace and relationships. You could be reassessing, do I still want to work with this person? Do I still want to work for this company? Do I still want to be in this relationship? And something could be changing for the better. So it can mean that you're changing jobs for something better. You're finally announcing that you're engaged. You're finally announcing, that you're making the necessary changes at your work. Wait until this stuff settles because Mercury is going to go retrograde into Leo, which is another fire sign. So it's friendly for you. And I look at Mercury retrograde in the 9th house as like, some of you guys are going, actually, I'm taking time away from work. I'm traveling, right? That could be the retrograde. Or I'm reimagining or relaunching my business. So I'm kind of thinking about my marketing strategy, or I am changing direction. I'm no longer doing this. Now I'm getting into teaching, or I'm going back to teaching. I'm going back to publishing, which can be beautiful. There can be really great changes that can kind of happen with this. I just know it's going to be pretty colorful for you guys. Simultaneously, Mercury rules this Jupiter, which is your chart ruler, and Mars conjunction. So it means that the change at work or the change with your status is coming from support of a partner, support of a client, a new business partner, maybe your spouse. And, there's some encouragement there with some of the changes that you're potentially going to be making. Okay? Good luck. I really want to hear how that one's affecting you guys. You have to let me know. All right, so we got Capricorn and Capricorn rising. You guys will be experiencing Mercury turning retrograde in Virgo in your 9th house, and it will retrograde back into Leo in your 8th house. All right, so basically Mercury rules the 9th house, and this is like the higher mind, your belief systems, long-term goals. This is what you're reevaluating. This is also foreign travel and legal matters, okay? And it rules, Mercury rules, not just your 9th house, but your 6th house of work, health, service, and routine. If you need to get visa or legal stuff handled, if you need to find a teacher, if you're trying to find a trainer, if you're trying to go back to school or make time to go back to school, these are things that I kind of think about. I also think that with Mercury turning retrograde back into your 8th house of joint resources, other people's money, there's a lot of like reassessing your finances, being like, do I have the money to be able to go on this trip? Do I have the funding to go back to school? Am I ready, to potentially change jobs? a lot of reworking things revolving around money owed. So maybe some of you guys are like, oh, well, you know, I really want to go and get this degree. Like maybe you know, find out whether or not there's going to be a scholarship, or if your job is potentially going to help pay for training or for traveling. That's something else that could come up. But the 8th house is debts, loans, joint resources, alimonies, inheritances. So if you're going through a storyline where you're trying to get money back on something, or maybe you're going through a lawsuit, or maybe you're, you know, trying to kind of get an estate settled, you may feel like now is the time to go back and deal with that, or now is the time to go and hire somebody to help me with that process. Be careful with travel. Obviously, international travel is a little dicey here. There could be some delays. I would say with travel, refundable things are a really good idea here, because the 8th house can be about getting reimbursed. And it's really about reevaluating something about your long-term goals. When it's in Virgo, I think it's helpful because it's going to be in a fellow sister earth sign. But when it goes into your 8th house and you have all this energy in your 8th house, there's a lot of like really asking yourself, like, what do I need to change? And sometimes there can be some uncomfortable stuff that can come up with retrogrades in the 8th house, but I think it's coming up for the better. And for you, this is very financial. You know, for you and for Cancer, it's very financial because it's happening in the 8th and the 2nd house. So there can be this sense of, well, you know, I've got some kind of payment due, or I've got some kind of financial thing brewing, and like I need to get paid. So how do I go about doing that? So you could be going back and forth with a bank. You could go back and forth with something revolving around taxes, your partner, or even insurance to kind of ensure that you get something paid, right? So it could be settlement stuff relating to that as well. Good luck to you guys. Let me know how that plays out. And we have Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You guys will be experiencing Mercury turning retrograde. This will be in Virgo, in your natal 8th house. It will go retrograde from Virgo back into Leo in your 7th house of relationships. Wow. Okay, so one thing I would say is that when the retrograde starts in the 8th house, there's a lot of like reflecting on your financial investments, your shared resources. Obviously, Mercury rules your 5th house of children, romantic partners, creativity, self-employment. So if you have kids, if you are self-employed, if you're in a relationship where you share finances with somebody, there's a lot of reassessing these things, right? It can also be about like having truths coming out revolving around how you feel about somebody and vulnerability in relationships. It could be about, you know, somebody kind of exposing their true feelings or their, you know, true beliefs when it comes to like a relationship. There could be shocking, you know, information that can come out revolving around somebody else's like finances as well. All right. And then Mercury will drop back into Leo. So you're also one of the signs that I would say, like, yes, you can hear from your exes, you can hear from the past, because you have Mercury, which is about communication, retrograde in your 7th house of relationships. Remember, retrogrades are also karmic, so it doesn't always mean that you have to hear from your ex, or if you do, that you're meant to get back together, okay? I don't always condone that with a retrograde, but it can bring in karmic partners. And so if it is time, because Mercury rules your 5th house of true love, for you to be like, I am ready to put myself back out there. Okay, universe, send me somebody. You might meet somebody really amazing. It can also be a time where if somebody is meant to come back to you and they do, you're reassessing, well, is it right for me? 7th house is also your marketplace. It could be clients, it could be your spouse, and you could be going back and forth trying to figure out, well, what do I want to create and put out there? And like, what are people going to enjoy? And like, what do I like to create that other people may potentially want to buy? There could be communication and going back and forth with a partner about a child or children, whether that's, you know, do we have one? What do we do with the ones that we have? Do we have another one? That could be happening with a Mercury retrograde in this part of your chart as well. Expect miscommunications with other people. They can take longer to get back to you. They could sometimes miss phone calls, text messages, or emails. And that's going to be quite a spicy full moon in your sign, square Uranus, where there could be a lot of back and forth with a partner about how you're navigating and kind of managing something that's going on the home front, and changes that are potentially happening around that time. Okay. Let me know what happens. All right. And then we've got Pisces and Pisces rising. So for you guys, you're going to be experiencing Mercury turning retrograde in Virgo in your natal 7th house of relationships. It will retrograde from your 7th house into your 6th house. So Mercury rules your 7th house of clients, relationships, partners, and kind of committed others, as well as your 4th house of home, family, the past. Okay, so first things first, holy mutable squares. Okay, so you've got a lot of energy that is in that's retrograde in your 1st house. So there's a lot of, where am I going, what do I want, what are my goals, who am I, why am I alone, or how do I move through things with some clarity. You've got some changing energies in your 4th house with Mars and Jupiter, which means you're debating, do I move here, do I move there, I'm indecisive, do I go back home, do I buy a second home? And there can be some kind of sudden expansion that's going on in terms of your home life or your family. And then retrograde happening in your 7th house of other people. Now, Mercury rules family. So you may be going back and forth with your family about a home matter, where you live, whether or not you renovate something, whether or not you relocate. You could be going back and forth with a romantic partner about whether or not, you guys are going to move in together, if you're going to relocate, if you're going to split, how that affects the home or the family. So it really depends on your personal situation, but Mercury in the opposite sign off the bat tells me that it's going to be colorful, because you're going to see other people that are going to have, issues communicating. And when it drops into your 7th house, this can be a time where you're like trying to sort through relationship issues, and you're trying to kind of like work through it and fix it and try to get to the bottom of issues. Mercury, can be other people who support you when it comes to your health. So having a Mercury retrograde from your 7th to your 6th is like, do you need a new doctor? Do you need a new therapist? Are you looking for a new trainer? Do you need a couples therapist for you and a partner to kind of work through like romantic issues, right? And like find ways to better kind of communicate and connect. It can also mean that there is some changes going on with your schedule, your health, your routine, or where you're working. And like that schedule may have to change because you could be moving or you could be helping a parent. And it may mean that your schedule's changing. You got to take some time off of work with the retrograde, and you're having to kind of find ways to better communicate either with your coworkers or your partners to be like, help me through some of these kind of changes that we're both experiencing at the same time. My advice here is also just reassess your relationships and your partnerships. I think I would say that to, both Pisces and Aquarius, to be honest with you. It can be a time where if something's been on the rocks, you could make the decision to kind of cut it loose. While these retrogrades are happening, Venus is also going through the 7th house, which is good for relationships, but it's making oppositions to Saturn. So I could see a lot of Saturn, like a lot of like Pisces and Pisces risings being like, it's not good enough. I've given you so many chances, or like, why should we try again? It's just going to be the same. And having a bit of like a critical eye, revolving around whether or not you want to continue with the relationship or take somebody back. That's kind of the feeling that I get with that. Okay. So hopefully that's helpful for you guys in giving you some insight into obviously kind of the second part of this Mercury kind of tango. I guess it's technically Mercury's going to go back into Leo, but yeah, I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on the matter. I'd always love to hear your feedback. I can't always get back to everybody, but I do read your comments. We've seen a jump in subscribers recently, so I just want to say thank you guys so much. As you know, I'm trying to get to 50K this year, so you can help me do that by clicking the bell button below. You'll be alerted as to when I have new videos. We have long format on the channel. We do horoscopes and lunar reports and so much more. I don't want to just tell you guys what's happening. I want to show you so that way you guys can learn astrology as well. So I appreciate your support. You want to see anything like my courses, or you want to book a personal one-on-one reading with me, or maybe you want your own personalized astrology calendar, click the links below. Go to beyondtheveiltarot.com. You can check all of this out. I am scheduling people in September, so if you're like, whoa, I want a Mercury retrograde reading, I recommend booking one now because they're going to be probably booked up by the end of the week. And I hope you guys enjoy this Mercury shadow. It's going to be interesting to see what kind of plays out. But yeah, leave me your thumbs up and your comments below, and I will talk to you guys on the other side. Until next time, take care.